Every life has a story. Some are told, others wait to be revealed. Stay with us. This is Daily Dose.
At what point does a son stop being a son and start being a liability to the very name he was born to protect? It is a question that has echoed through the corridors of power for centuries, but rarely has it felt as heavy or as final as it does right now. On a quiet evening in February 2026, just as the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon in Montecito, a digital firestorm was ignited that would change the British monarchy forever. It started with an email blast, a 16-page document that landed in the inboxes of major press outlets across the United Kingdom and the United States. This was not just a press release or a simple statement of intent. It was a formal demand, signed with the Sussex monogram, and it carried the weight of a legacy that had been fractured for years. Prince Harry was asking for what he believed was rightfully his. He was invoking a secret provision, a handwritten clause left behind by his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, which reportedly outlined a £20 million inheritance. But as the world would soon learn, this was never just about the money. This was about the price of a name, the cost of a departure, and the cold reality of a crown that had decided to stop compromising. Welcome to Daily Dose, where we look at the stories that define the figures we think we know. To understand how we reached this point of no return, we have to go back to the early months of 2022. Just 6 months before her passing, Queen Elizabeth II was reportedly looking for a way to bridge the growing chasm in her family. She was a woman who believed in duty above all else, but she was also a grandmother who hoped for reconciliation until the very end. It was during this time that she is said to have added a codicil to her final wishes, a £20 million discretionary legacy intended for Prince Harry. However, this was not a simple gift or a passive handout. It was described by those close to the royal estate's office as an olive branch on a timer. The money was tied to a very specific set of conditions that were meant to act as a tether, pulling the Duke of Sussex back toward the institution he had left behind. To receive this inheritance, Prince Harry had to maintain official representation of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. He had to reside within a Crown-affiliated jurisdiction for at least 180 days a year, and he had to submit to an annual review of his service and ethics. It was a moral clause designed to ensure that the inheritance was used to support the institution he was born into, rather than the media ventures he had chosen instead. When the letter was leaked on February 10, 2026, it became clear that Prince Harry viewed these conditions through a very different lens. He argued that despite his move to California, he remained a loyal son and a dignified representative of the Windsor bloodline. He spoke of his decade of military service, the creation of the Invictus Games, and his tour abroad as evidence that he had upheld the code of duty through example. He even made a deeply personal appeal based on his role as a father, writing that his children, Archie and Lilibet, were descendants of the Queen and deserved their rightful share of the legacy she had sworn to protect. Prince Harry suggested that the mark of legacy had been moved by those currently in power, but even more explosive was the accusation he leveled against his father, King Charles. He alleged that the king, along with Prince William and Princess Anne, had intentionally misinterpreted the Queen's dying wishes. He claimed that a whisper campaign had poisoned the late monarch's perception of Meghan Markle during her final months, creating a narrative of prejudice and manipulation that ultimately led to his exclusion. He wrote that his grandmother was isolated intellectually and emotionally by those who feared Meghan's potential for reform, and he stated his belief that the Queen did not die understanding the full truth of the situation. The palace did not stay silent for long. Within 48 hours, a statement was issued that was uncharacteristically blunt. They denounced the letter as a misguided grievance filled with factual inaccuracies. But the real response came in the form of what was called the Sussex Entitlement Audit. This was a point-by-point takedown of Prince Harry's self-declared legacy, and the data it contained was devastating to the Sussex narrative. While Prince Harry spoke of his contributions, the audit revealed that during his final years of active service, he was averaging only 18 engagements per year. For context, Prince William was carrying out 122, while Princess Anne was performing nearly 200. The audit showed that Prince Harry had no official diplomatic missions or administrative roles within charitable trusts during that time. It even noted that he had skipped annual Remembrance Sunday ceremonies for personal reasons, including a vacation in Botswana. The palace was making a very public argument that you cannot inherit a house you walked out of and then proceeded to set fire to from across the street. This audit was not just a defense of the budget. It was the opening salvo of a new era for the monarchy, one where blood alone was no longer enough to guarantee a seat at the table. It highlighted the £2.7 million spent on Frogmore Cottage renovations, which were only repaid after public backlash. And it confirmed that since January 2020, the Duke had ceased to represent the Crown in any formal or informal capacity. This data-driven rebuttal was designed to show that the conditions of the Queen's codicil had not just been ignored, but fundamentally rejected by the Duke's own actions over the course of 5 years. On January 1, 2026, King Charles took the most consequential constitutional step of his reign by signing the Royal Succession Charter. This 94-page document was designed to eliminate the ambiguity that had allowed the Sussex conflict to simmer for years. It moved the monarchy toward a model that insiders are calling inheritance by conduct. Under this new charter, the rights to titles, estates, and financial legacies are no longer guaranteed by birth. They are now audited and evaluated based on service, residency, and adherence to the ethics of the Crown. It was a structural reset intended to future-proof the institution for the next century, involving legal advisors from Gray's Inn and constitutional scholars from Oxford. And at the heart of this document was Clause 82, a section that specifically and permanently excludes Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and their descendants from all categories of royal inheritance. The Charter also prohibits the use of royal imagery or language in any of their future media or merchandise. The message from King Charles was clear: legacy is not to be monetized. This was a response to years of media ventures that the palace labeled as unauthorized commercial exploitation. They noted the Netflix docuseries, the memoir Spare, and the various podcasts as evidence of a breach of trust. Each instance was recorded as a violation of protocols that bar royals from using their affiliation for private financial gain. King Charles reportedly stated in a closed-door council that legacy is not for sale while he reigns. As we explore here on Daily Dose, the monarchy has decided that entitlement ends exactly where duty ends. The reaction to this charter has been a fascinating study in shifting public perception. For a long time, the story of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle was framed as a battle between a rigid, outdated institution and a modern couple seeking freedom. But the narrative has shifted significantly in the last few years. A major poll conducted in early 2026 showed that 57% of the British public supported the decision to exclude the Sussexes from the inheritance. Perhaps even more surprising was the drop in support among the younger generation. People who once saw the couple as romantic rebels have begun to view the situation through a lens of institutional responsibility. Support for the Sussexes among those under 35 dropped to 31%, down from nearly 50% just a few years prior. The public mood seems to have matured from romantic sympathy to a demand for accountability. In the United Kingdom press, even traditionally sympathetic outlets have struck a more neutral or even critical tone. The narrative that pain equals privilege is no longer as persuasive as it once was. The monarchy is being viewed more as a structure that demands accountability rather than a family drama for public consumption. Even on flagship panel shows, the question being asked is simple. If the couple finds the institution so harmful, why are they still fighting for its money? In the United States, the reaction was more complex, but even there, a sense of narrative saturation has begun to set in. Major networks have started to ask if the Sussexes are victims of a monarchy or the architects of their own exclusion. This shift in the air was punctuated by the news that major creative partnerships were not being renewed, as the Sussex narrative began to feel repetitive to a global audience. While Prince Harry was drafting his demands, the other members of the family were stepping into their new roles under the charter. Princess Catherine has emerged as a central figure in this new custodial system. Often referred to by aides as the archivist in pearls, she has taken on the responsibility of overseeing the royal ethics curriculum and the digitization of the royal archives. She is curating the legacy that Prince Harry felt was being stolen, managing the royal ceremonial dress collection and the coronation legacy exhibits. Prince William, as the constitutional successor, has taken oversight of the Duchy of Cornwall and the national ceremonial integrity. He is being prepared for co-sovereign authority, overseeing the crown income and ensuring the institution remains financially and morally sound. Even the younger generation is being integrated into this system of earned legacy. Prince George is preparing for his 18th birthday, which will include a formal induction into his future roles as a trainee for the Duchy of Cornwall. Princess Charlotte has been named a cultural custodian, overseeing music archives and education sponsorships. Lady Louise Windsor has taken on a role as the keeper of ceremonial heirlooms, tasked with curating public exhibitions from the royal vaults. These are not just titles handed out at birth. They are jobs with benchmarks, quotas, and annual audits. The Charter defines 4 legal categories of inheritance, from heirs by line and service to cultural custodians. It is a system where preservation of history and national representation is no longer ceremonial, but evaluated and revocable. The fallout for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle has extended far beyond the walls of Buckingham Palace into the very heart of their commercial empire. By 2026, the landscape that once welcomed them with open arms had begun to cool significantly. Netflix reportedly declined to renew their creative partnership, citing a lack of new narrative direction. Their podcasting ventures had already stalled after being pulled from major platforms, and their upcoming documentaries were postponed indefinitely. The Archwell Foundation saw a 27% decline in donations in the final quarter of 2025, with multiple sponsors pulling support due to concerns over mission clarity. Many industry analysts believe this represents a legitimacy collapse. When the connection to the crown was severed not just emotionally, but legally and structurally, the brand that the Sussexes had built began to lose its primary source of value. The role of Meghan Markle in this entire saga remains a point of intense debate and scrutiny. Within the palace, she is often viewed as the primary architect of the strategy to reposition the family as victims of a prejudiced system. From the 2021 Oprah interview to the 6-part Netflix series, the narrative was one of trauma and emotional suppression. But the palace audit categorized these activities as a controlled demolition of the institution. They pointed to specific instances, like the reenactment of text exchanges between Meghan and Catherine, as defamatory fiction. The Charter's new language on custodial distortion was written specifically to address this, codifying that any descendant who uses their status to monetize or alter royal history would forfeit their rights. It was a direct response to what the family saw as the weaponization of their private lives for public consumption and private profit. Princess Anne, often the most straightforward member of the family, reportedly described the new charter as a matter of containment rather than cruelty. She believed that the monarchy had to protect what endures by letting go of what would not. For her and for King Charles, the decision was about the survival of the structure itself. They felt they were no longer speaking to the Harry they once knew, but to a version of him that had been built through media and narrative. This sense of loss is palpable throughout the events of 2026. There is a feeling that the family has moved past the stage of anger and into a stage of cold, administrative finality. There are no more olive branches being extended from London to Montecito. The line has been drawn in the sand, and it is a line that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are now standing on the other side of, with no path back. As the winter of 2026 set in, the images coming out of the United Kingdom told a story of two very different paths. On one hand, you had Prince William and Princess Catherine visiting charities and veterans organizations, leaning into the continuity and humility that the public seems to crave. On the other, you had the Sussexes issuing statements through PR firms in California, speaking of their sadness and their sense of being erased. The contrast has become jarring even to their once loyal fan base. When Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand, Crescent, began launching luxury baby items at $250 per blanket, it was seen by many as a move that contradicted the themes of service and struggle that she had previously championed. It felt like a monetization of royal motherhood after condemning the institution that created the status. This move caused internal disputes even within their most dedicated support groups online. The Royal Succession Charter is not just a document for the present. It is a roadmap for the future that King Charles has spent years preparing. It establishes a precedent that will affect generations of royals to come, making it the most consequential constitutional act in over a century. It says that the Crown is a working custodial system, not a private platform for personal branding. It demands that those who represent the nation be present, be accountable, and be discreet. This is the legacy that King Charles wants to leave behind. He has often said that he does not rule sentiment, he rules structure. And when the two diverge, he will always choose the structure, regardless of the personal cost. It is a heavy burden for a father to carry, especially in the twilight of his reign, but it is one he seems determined to bear until the end. The story of the Sussexes and the Crown has reached a point where the questions are no longer about what might happen, but about how everyone will live with what has already occurred. The monarchy has found a way to survive by defining itself more clearly than ever before. They have replaced the unwritten expectations of the past with a sharp, unyielding legal framework. The message to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is one of finality. They chose freedom, and the Crown has acknowledged that choice by giving them the ultimate freedom, a total and complete separation from the responsibilities and the rewards of the institution. There will be no appeal to this charter. There will be no last-minute reconciliation at a coronation or a family gathering. The door has been closed, and the lock has been turned by the king's own hand. As we look toward the summer of 2026 and the upcoming milestones for the royal family, the absence of the Sussexes will be a permanent fixture. The focus has shifted entirely to the next generation, to Prince George and Princess Charlotte, who are being raised in a world where their future is not just inherited, but earned through participation and presence. They will be the first to truly live under the rules of the new charter, and their success or failure will be the ultimate test of King Charles's vision. For Prince Harry, the £20 million demand remains a symbol of a bridge that was never built. It was an inheritance that required him to be someone he no longer wanted to be, and in the end, the price of his new life was the total loss of his old one. It is a tragedy of distance and silence, one that plays out on the world stage, but is felt most deeply in the quiet, empty rooms of a family that can no longer find common ground. The legacy of Queen Elizabeth II continues to be the foundation of everything the family does, but it is being interpreted in a new way for a new time. The secret provision she left behind was perhaps her final attempt to keep the family together, a way to offer a path back for a grandson she loved. But that same provision ended up being the catalyst for their final separation. It forced a choice that had been avoided for years, moving the conflict from the realm of private emotion into the realm of public statute. In the end, the monarchy chose the institution over the individual. They chose the long-term survival of the crown over the short-term peace of the family. The Royal Succession Charter is the answer to that challenge, a document that turns the monarchy into a practiced, evaluated, and audited system of service that can no longer be weaponized by those who leave it. The silence from Montecito in the weeks following the charter's release has been telling. Some say they knew it was coming, and that the letter from Prince Harry was a last test of the king's resolve. If it was a test, the crown passed it by not flinching in the face of legal threats or public accusations. They did not engage in a public war of words, but instead released a 94-page legal document that ended the conversation once and for all. This is the new reality for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They are no longer part of the royal story in any official capacity. They are observers of a legacy they once shared, watching from a distance as a new generation takes up the mantle they left behind. Thank you for joining us here at Daily Dose as we follow this developing chapter in history. The monarchy continues, restructured and redefined, while the echoes of a £20 million demand fade into the background of time. Does a father ever truly stop looking for his son in the shadows of the palace? Or has the crown finally become the only thing left to hold onto?
If this story moved you, leave a like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to know. The truth continues tomorrow. Until then, this was your Daily Dose.